The Syrian army says occupation forces launched airstrikes on an area in the southern outskirts of Damascus where military defectors believe has a strong Iranian military presence in the second such attack within a week. The army said on Wednesday the aerial strike on a strategic area was hit in the past, came from the occupied Golan Heights by the occupation regime and caused only material damage. Military defectors said that the strike targeted a military base in Jebel Main Heights near the town of Kiswa, where Iranian Revolutionary Guards have long been entrenched in a rugged area almost 15 kilometers south of central Damascus. Twin explosions in the central Afghan province of Bamiyan killed at least 14 people and wounded 45 more, provincial officials said on Wednesday, as the international community pledged assistance for Afghanistan at a conference in Switzerland. The police chief of the province said the two bombs, hidden at the side of a road in a main bazaar in Bamiyan city, killed 12 civilians and 2 traffic policemen. The officials said the other 45 people injured were mostly from a nearby restaurant and shops. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief said fighting between Ethiopia's military and regional forces from the northern Tigray region is seriously destabilizing the East African region and hostilities should hold. Hundreds of people have been killed since fighting began on November 4th. More than 41,000 refugees have fled to Sudan, and there are reports of militias targeting civilians. Ethiopia has described the fighting as an internal law enforcement matter, a position Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed reiterated in a statement on Wednesday. Azerbaijan said Wednesday its forces had entered the second of 3 districts to be handed back by Armenia as part of the deal that ended weeks of fighting over the region of Nagorno-Karabakh. The Defense Ministry in Baku said in a statement that units of the Azerbaijani army entered the Kalabajar region on November 25th. Under that deal, signed earlier this month by Armenia, Azerbaijan and Russia, waged between the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region and the territory of Armenia. Kalabajar was initially scheduled for handover on November 15th, but the deadline was postponed by Azerbaijan for humanitarian reasons. The Institute for Economics and Peace said on Wednesday the number of people killed in terror attacks worldwide fell for the 5th consecutive year in 2019, with conflict still the main driver of terror, but an increase of far-right terrorism seen in the West. The Institute said in its 2020 Global Tourism Index, deaths from terrorism fell in 2019 to 13,829, a 15% fall from the year before and a further annual decline from a peak in 2014. It warned that in North America, Western Europe and Oceania, deaths attributed to far-right terror have increased by 250,000 since 2014, with 89 killings in 2019. It said they are higher now than at any time in the last 50 years. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam said Wednesday that the city's new national security law has been remarkably effective in restoring stability after months of political unrest, and that bringing normalcy back to the political system is an urgent priority. Leader Lam made the comments in her annual policy address more than a month after it was postponed so that she could seek Beijing's support for various economic measures aimed at reviving the semi-autonomous Chinese territory's economy. Beijing imposed the national security law on Hong Kong in June, aiming to crack down on dissent following months of anti-government protests in the city that at times descended into violence. Russia released a new results Wednesday, claiming its experimental COVID-19 vaccine was highly effective and promised it would cost less on international markets than vaccines by some of its Western competitors. according to the Russian Direct Investment Fund, which bankrolled the development of the jab. Sputnik 5 will cost less than $10 per dose or less than $20 for the 2 doses needed to vaccinate one person. On international markets, the fund said that the vaccination will be free for Russians. The 2-shot jab, the fund promised in a statement, will be 2 or more times cheaper than those by Pfizer or Moderna, which cost about $20 and $15 to $25 per dose respectively, based on agreements the companies have struck to supply their vaccines to the US government. A restaurant's dining ban in Los Angeles was due to come into force Wednesday as officials warned Americans to stay at home for the Thanksgiving holiday, while parts of Europe eyed looser lockdowns over the festive season. The 3-week order in America's second biggest city will begin as California faces record COVID-19 cases, and its health secretary urges people to avoid large family gatherings. As America grappled with its crisis, European nations were slowly relaxing measures ahead of their own Christmas holidays as a second wave of infections slowed following weeks of lockdowns on the continent. The Robert Koch Institute for Disease Control has announced in Berlin, Germany has reported 410 new coronavirus-related deaths within 24 hours to reach a new record. The total number of deaths rose accordingly to 14,771. The highest daily figure so far was reached in mid-April, with 315 deaths reported within 1 day back then. The number of new infections reported within 24 hours was 18,633 on Wednesday. The Robert Koch Institute said on Wednesday that was 1,000 cases more than a week ago. Global airline lobby International Air Transport Association, or IATA, is working on a mobile app that will help travelers demonstrate their coronavirus-free status, joining a push to introduce so-called COVID passports to speed up the revival of international travel. According to IATA, the travel pass will display test results together with proof of inoculation, as well as listing national entry rules and details on the nearest labs. The app will also link to an electronic copy of the holder's passport to prove their identity. IATA said a test program will begin with British Airways' parent International Airlines Group this year, before arriving on mobile phone maker Apple's devices in the first quarter of 2021 and Android from April. Travelers will be able to share their status with border authorities or present a QR code for scanning. Iraq is seeking an upfront payment of about $2 billion in exchange for a long-term crude supply contract, the latest sign of Baghdad's growing desperation for cash as its economy unravels. The country is grappling with a crisis brought ahead by low oil prices and OPEC Plus output cuts. As state coffers dwindle and school teachers go unpaid, the country risks a repeat of upheaval last year. In a letter to oil companies, the Iraqi government sought to mitigate its dire financial position by proposing a 5-year supply contract delivering 4 million barrels a month, or about 130,000 barrels per day. Nicaragua suffered nearly $750 million in damage from Hurricanes Eta and Luta, the government said on Wednesday, as the Inter-American Development Bank promised $1.7 billion in aid for millions of people affected across Central America. Nearly 44,000 homes suffered total or partial damage in Nicaragua, said Nicaraguan Finance Minister Ivan Acosta, estimating the storms have cost the country $743 million in losses. Hurricane Eta alone impacted some 3 million people in 7 Central American countries and caused up to $5.5 billion in damage, the Inter-American Development Bank said, citing estimates from the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs.